Greetings. This is a special broadcast to demonstrate one of the most compelling examples of electoral fraud suffered by Mexicans on June 2, 2024, in the presidential, senatorial, and congressional elections. Here we will incontrovertibly demonstrate that the INE did not follow its own guidelines. The digital chain of custody was broken. The origin of 52% of the digital records shown by INE cannot be verified. The INE itself specifies that the QR code must be attached in the specified box for that purpose. The photograph should be taken using the PrepCasilla software. This is very specific and very clear in the use of this software. It also states that once the digital capture is carried out and the records are digitized using the procedure through PrepCasilla, note that it does not mention any other software, or that you should take it and send it via WhatsApp. None of that. It is very clearly specified what can be done. Remember that for the government, what they can do is always specified. Anything not mentioned in the manual is not allowed. That's Mexican law. We Mexicans have authorization to do anything except what is prohibited by law, and the public servants are only and exclusively allowed to do what is written that they can do. Anything that is not in these manuals, they cannot do. And again on page 7 of their manual, they show that the person digitizing must verify that the QR code is attached. It says, the PREP record that does not contain a QR code must have the label with the corresponding QR code placed in the upper left box designated for it. In case the identification data of the PREP record and the QR code do not match, after review and notification to the CAT coordinator, the digitizer must attach the correct QR code over the incorrect one, provided the inconsistency warrants it and it is not a case of forced identification. They then explain what forced identification is, but for practical purposes, it tells us that the sticker has its place and it should be attached there. They are very specific, right? Well, let's see some examples. Anyone who opens the election documents and checks about 30 will surely find at least 2 or 3 that do not have a QR code. Here we are seeing several examples of not following instructions and not attaching the corresponding QR code, which is one of the ways this record will later be validated. So, if it doesn't have the QR code, it loses this validation process. Here I show again how the manual clearly states that PrepCasilla must be used, which is this INE software developed specifically to capture the records and send them to the digital collection center. As we are finding thousands of records uploaded to the system without a QR. We also have blurry records, illegible records, records without data. These are also expressly prohibited by the regulations. It is clear the great negligence of the INE and the lack of training of the staff. How many of us have done a government procedure where you submit the documentation, and if you're missing a comma or filled out a box incorrectly, they completely reject the file? How could it be possible that such a serious matter as a presidential election in Mexico has all these errors? The procedure is so unprofessional and costs the citizens so many hundreds of millions that the number of failures makes it an unreliable procedure, simply because of the number of errors in the procedures that the INE itself specifies. Simply for this reason, the election should be annulled. The procedures are very clearly developed to provide certainty to the election, ensure the origin and legitimacy of the data. If we do not have these two assumptions, then nothing else is valid. All the information we extracted from the metadata, all the information that was analyzed, we extracted directly from the INE servers, which are official government data. If I present an Excel and I am analyzing it, it is not because I created the Excel. It is simply because I downloaded that information which is directly from the government. Different types of software can be used to analyze the metadata. In fact, on the internet, there are several sites where you upload a photograph and you can see the metadata of that photograph. They are free, and you can upload as much data as you want. Here I'm showing an example of the metadata that comes with each record. This is information that comes in code form in any digital image you have. And now, well, sometimes it's a bit difficult to read this information. So I'm going to show you this other one where I am highlighting in purple the information that is very important, and that is what the INE with its own software prints on the metadata. This tells you the software Kotlin, the version of the software, the copyright, which is from the INE. If you notice, it gives you some numbers after that, say GPS latitude and GPS longitude. Well, that is the exact location of where the photograph was taken. This part is very key because once they take the photograph and the latitude and longitude are recorded, you can be certain that this photograph was taken at the voting location where it should have been done. If the longitude suddenly shows you're in Mérida and the longitude and latitude of this record are placed in Michoacán, then you say this record is not valid because it was taken elsewhere, right? This latitude and longitude data is very important. Now I'm going to show you another one, an example of how most of the records in the election look like. If you notice, it does not have the INE software, does not have the software version, much less does it have the latitude and longitude. So, these images do not tell us anything. We do not have any certainty of authenticity or origin. Therefore, we cannot know where the images come from, or if these images were generated by the INE software, or if they were generated by the Kotlin software. We ignore the real location where the photograph was taken. I'm going to give you a somewhat crude example. It's like if I go to a store with a $500 bill where all the security parameters are violated and I hand that bill to the store. The store, upon reviewing it, cannot verify that it is an authentic bill because it does not have any of the security elements that give the bill validity. Immediately, the store will return the bill to me and say, "This bill, sir, is fake," and they will reject it. It is vital that the INE allows a forensic audit of its servers and publicly demonstrates the process by which these digital files were received and that we, the citizens, can verify through the digital sequence the origin of the data. As long as they don't do it, 52% of the records are considered completely apocryphal. All the metadata was generated, or should have been generated, as we saw specified in their manual by the Kotlin software and must have the INE copyright with latitude and longitude. We analyzed 171,000 records, and of those 171,000 records, only 14,000 records have the copyright in the software used. The truth is there is no justification for the metadata not coming from the software required by INE. If a cell phone was not available or the software was not installed, the only option the manual provides, and we repeat that they can only do what is specified in the manual. They cannot do anything else that is not specified there. So the only other option the manual offers is to take them to the collection centers and scan the records there. 56,142 of the records fall into this assumption that they were scanned at the collection centers. We no longer consider this reliable because the chain of custody was broken. Once it leaves the voting center and reaches the district center, there is much evidence that the physical records were replaced there with fake records, and then a fake record could have been scanned at that moment. Therefore, that is no longer reliable data. Out of 56,142 records that were scanned in these district centers, only 63 were won by the opposition. Of these 56,142 records, 34,000 have data that is either incomplete or missing. More than 11,000 records are illegible. It's very strange that the opposition only wins in 390 polling stations throughout the entire election. The truth is, it's something very hard to believe. In the chain of custody, which is a legal concept where a procedure indicates that there must be a clear transfer of information from one place to another, verifying its origin to ensure that the information is trustworthy and comes directly from the source. That is what is called the chain of custody. 88,000 records that were sent from unauthorized cell phones or applications by the INE, we cannot know where they came from. It has illegal metadata or metadata that is even truncated and shows manipulation. Why was this information modified and for what purpose? Who had access to the INE servers to be able to manipulate this? Due to all this investigation, it is completely and irrefutably established that 52% of the election cannot be counted because the digital custody was broken, and therefore all these records must be annulled as is clearly specified by the INE manuals. And, according to the electoral law, an election that presents more than 20% anomalies and 25% in a presidential election must be annulled. We have 52%, so this election must be annulled and the results must be reversed. I repeat the example I often mention. If a person has their jewelry stolen and 3 years pass and then the criminals are caught, are they really going to leave the jewelry with the criminals? The criminals are put in jail, and the jewelry is returned to the rightful owner. That's how justice should be applied. Therefore, the senators and congressmen who are currently in power are illegal. For all the aforementioned reasons, the presidency is also being occupied by a person who is illegal and illegitimate. Thank you very much for listening. I am Ao from Camino Florido.
Tiwi.
Tiwi.